There are certain Emily Dickinson poems which are so ethereal and so morbid that by the time you get to the end of them, you forget where you started. Oftentimes, though, what she will do in these poems is she will repeat, as if in some type of incantation, the important elements. Now, with the poem in question today, those elements are death and a fly. Repeating each of these terms during the poem. This is because, as the poem goes on, those things change. There is perhaps one great big statement being made by that little fly that we will get to today. What that statement is not very little. What that statement is may be heretical. This video is part of 3 separate playlists here on the channel. Number 1 being obviously the Echoes of Emily playlist, but number 2 being a playlist of Emily Dickinson poetry discussions, and third, the general playlist for poetry discussions. If you like or appreciate the work that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing that I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. So consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more literature in the future. I heard a fly buzz when I died. The stillness in the room was like the stillness in the air between the heaves of storm. The eyes around had wrung them dry, and breaths were gathering firm for that last onset, when the king be witnessed in the room. I willed my keepsakes, signed away what portion of me be assignable, and then it was there interposed a fly, with blue uncertain stumbling buzz between the light and me. And then the windows failed, and then I could not see. So I think the language here is fairly plain enough, but it won't hurt to go over a little bit of recasting this poem. I heard a fly buzz when I died. The stillness in the room was like the stillness in the air between the heaves of storm. Our speaker is dying, and as our speaker is dying, there are great pauses, great awkward silences in the room, but they are like the heaves of storm, right? They're between great emotions. The eyes around had wrung them dry, and breaths were gathering firm for that last onset when the king be witnessed in the room. Everyone was sort of trying to get that stiff upper lip in order to be prepared for our speaker finally passing. Our speaker finally passing when the king would be witnessed in the room. Now, there's a little bit of ambiguity here. Is this Jesus taking our beloved to the afterlife? Or is this death himself? Because king is capitalized, this isn't Elvis, right? That's where we all go immediately. We think Elvis. I believe that this is the Christian deity. So it wouldn't have to be, but the world that Emily Dickinson lived in was steeped in Christianity. So if this is an actual religious take as opposed to death, his or herself, showing up, I think that's what this is, because we have many examples of death personified showing up in Emily Dickinson poems, and death personified is called out. I willed my keepsakes, signed away what portion of me be assignable, and then it was there interposed a fly. We got that same fly, right? We had forgotten about you. We got you back. We had mentioned died. We've not come back to that yet. I willed away my keepsakes, signed away what portion of me be assignable, and then it was there interposed a fly. The funny thing about this stanza that maybe Emily Dickinson doesn't get the play that she deserves in classrooms, period. There have been only, I believe, 3 times in my entire academic career, from K through 12 to an English literature degree through a master's degree in creative writing. I think 3 times total where Emily Dickinson was a point of contention. The thing that is interesting here, I heard a fly buzz when I died, the stillness in the room. These people are there for our speaker to die. They've shown up for this final onset, at this last onset, as Emily Dickinson calls it. As our speaker calls it, I suppose I should say. They've shown up for this. But keepsakes and a will have not been done. Now, maybe there is some tradition here that I don't know about, but I believe most times your will is prior to the deathbed, unless this death has come suddenly. So it suddenly, but not instantly, because our speaker is surrounded by those to whom she would will away her keepsakes. So the status of this death is almost certainly one that is brought on by disease that terminates in quick fashion. Probably not, for example, a cancer. So diagnosis was not in Emily Dickinson's day what it is today, but probably this is something to do with a fever, right? Something that you have come down with and you got a fever, and it looks like you're not going to be around long. With blue, uncertain, stumbling buzz between the light and me, and then the windows failed, and then I could not see. So the reason I mentioned a fever is because of this. Blue. Blue is normally known as a cool color, right? So we are then contrasting, maybe, what the speaker is dying from, dying with, dying of, and the blue. The blue, which could be the reflection of light off of the fly's eyes, right? Blue-green sort of tint. But that comes up between the light and me. What is the light? Well, the light's the ever after. So that little fly sticks in between. We're going to get back to this fly, because there's something else here that's missing. Something very big that is missing, because in the next couple lines, the windows failed, the eyes failed, and our speaker could not see. It is then that our speaker has died. So the first thing may be worth talking about in talking points here. Anytime, I can't say anytime, most times, I can't even say most times, any time that I have been present for this poem being talked about, I want to figure out how to say this without sounding condescending, but still be a little bit condescending, because this is the easy way out. Sure, this is in the poem, but it's the easy way out. What am I talking about? Well, in times of great duress, we notice weird little things. It's a trick that our mind plays to keep us from suffering. Our speaker here is dying. Our speaker here is getting ready to take their last breaths. And instead of focusing on their loved ones, instead of focusing on any wrongs they might right, or any rights they wish to wrong before checking out, it's that goddamn fly. That fly pops up. And yeah, that is something that we do as humans. That is certainly a talking point to be had in this poem. And probably, if I'm being 100% honest, This is probably the 8th video I've done on I Heard a Fly Buzz When I Died on this channel. Probably in some of those videos, that's the talk that I gave. It's almost inevitable with this poem. You read this poem, it's the first thing that sticks out. Like hammering your thumb instead of a nail, it's hard to get past that point. It's hard to get back to work. But I think there's more work to be had here. Yes, absolutely, that is 100% a part of this poem. That what we do in these big moments is we concentrate, we fixate on stupid things, we get distracted. Just like this talk about the fly. Just like this talk about the fly being what we do instead of we're waiting for the king to be witnessed. Did you catch that? We're here dying, waiting for the king to be witnessed. The king is to be witnessed before the death, right? That last onset when the king be witnessed in the room. That last onset when the king be witnessed in the room. In that moment, I gave away everything that I had to give in life. And then there interposed a fly. And then the windows failed. And I could not see. There's two real possibilities here that could be commented on by our speaker. Number one, the king is the fly. Maybe heretical. Number two, there is no king. There is no king. Wawa wooey, Mrs. Miss Emily. Wawa wooey. What a pair of revelations from our speaker. Everyone was there waiting to see the king, none more so than our speaker. But our speaker notices that fly and is momentarily distracted, and then our speaker is gone. No king came, unless that king came in the form of a fly. Now, if we really wanted to get nasty with this, if we really did, we could look into who is the king, the Lord of the Flies, the King of the Flies. We could go down that route because the demonology route with this poem would suggest that either our speaker did not go to the good place, or maybe that is the king. Maybe all are ruled over by the Lord of the Flies. I'm not sure which of those is most commentable, but it does make you wonder. We have an awful lot of conjecture over whether or not Emily Dickinson was in fact a Christian. Here's in yesterday's video, we talked a little bit about insidious fashion, the insidious nature of some of Emily Dickinson's poetry, the insidious nature of her revelations. What a more insidious way to tempt us into, to lure us into the understanding that our speaker is not a Christian and is, in fact, saying there is no Christ to in. There's no Christian to be had. Then what we're doing here, we set up the fly. Boom. We set up the died. Boom. A little bit later, we talk about the king. Boom. Then we bring the fly back. Boom. Recalling up here. Boom. And then we bring back death, but we don't call it death. Boom. Leaving this circle as the only circle that's open in the poem, not outright saying, not outright coming out and saying, hey, Elvis never showed up. Elvis has left the building. Never telling us that. Leaving us to our own wares. Leaving us to search through this poem. So it's sort of like those, you've heard those piano tunes that somehow there's a wrong note in, and it just, you cringe with it, right? We cringe through this poem because there's something missing and we can't tell what. The poem ends and something wasn't resolved. There was some loose thread there, but golly, I just can't get around to remembering what it was. The king never shows up. Is that what our speaker is telling us? The king will not show up. Now, I talked about wanting to have a hauntological and nihilistic interpretation for all of these poems. Nihilism. I willed away my keepsakes, signed away what portion of me be assignable, and then it was there interposed a fly. This stanza right here. I want to really, really pay attention to this. Oh, dang it. No. I willed away my keepsakes, signed away what portion of me be assignable. Basically, what we're doing here is saying, however old our speaker is 25, our speaker's 40, our speaker's 70, this moment on the deathbed, signing away what portions of our speaker may be assignable, willing away the keepsakes, is giving away all of the tangible notices that our speaker ever was. That's it. Maybe it's the notebooks. Maybe this is a stand-in for Emily Dickinson. This is a self-insert poem. This is the notebooks that are living 200 years after she passed. Maybe this is an heiress herself. Maybe this is a rich individual who has tons of stuff to give away on their deathbed. Maybe. It's still just stuff. And you don't get to take it with you. And at the end of everything that you had, the culmination of your life's work, everything there was for you to give away, the only thing there was left for you to notice was that interposing fly. This is certainly an argument of weak nihilism that we struck out right and left to see what would withstand the blow, and everything crumbled. Nothing is worth it. We are but leaves scattered to the wind in an uncaring universe. That is what we have here from a nihilistic point of view. From a hauntological point of view, this is an equally interesting poem. Not as good as yesterday's, but equally interesting. I want you to read that first line with me and tell me what stands out. I heard a fly buzz when I died. It's past tense. This is not a present tense our speaker dying poem. It is a past tense our speaker's gone poem. This is, from Emily Dickinson, another poem from an individual that is already gone. The spectral idea in hauntology is that those things from the past may not ever truly die, so long as we keep them with us. A lot of the sort of more spooky elements of hauntology when you really start to read texts with an hauntological lens on, right? You talk about putting those lenses on in order to see what you can get out of a text. When you start putting on a hauntological lens, one of the things that you'll look for is repetition, because that's what a ghost is. A ghost is just a repetition, right? A ghost is a repetition of something that normally, under a lot of the mythologies around ghosts, something that went wrong. This would imply that our speaker's death and or our speaker's life went wrong, and that's why our speaker is still speaking to us. This is also maybe an anti-Christian sentiment. How much haunting is there to be had in Christianity? Not a whole lot, really. A lot of the stuff that you are looking to when you say, a lot of that is extraneous to the actual core religious beliefs. But we have here in this poem, we have, like we talked about, I lost myself. The fly comes back. The idea of death comes back. Where is it here? The idea of stillness in the air and breaths comes back. Willed and signed away comes back. Little things, sure, but there are things that do repeat. There are things that do come back, even if when they come back, like willed versus signed away, when they come back, they are slightly changed. In a hauntological context, our speaker here, through these things signed away, will carry on, will live on. Not in corporeal form, but will keep going. However, we know at the end of this poem, our speaker haunts on regardless. Regardless. So, it is unsurprising, perhaps, that a poem that has so much to do with death would make contextual sense in both a nihilistic and a hauntological context. But the thing that really sticks out to me is, in hauntological terms, not what does repeat, but a door that is opened and never closed. Where, oh where, is the king? I heard a fly buzz when I died. The stillness in the room was like the stillness in the air between the heaves of storm. The eyes around had wrung them dry, and breaths were gathering firm for that last onset, when the king be witnessed in the room. I willed my keepsakes, signed away what portion of me be assignable, and then it was there interposed a fly, with blue, uncertain, stumbling buzz between the light and me. And then the windows failed, and then I could not see.